Good morning, boys and girls. Bible Thursday morning, we're going to learn about a man named Balaam. And we're learning from the book of Numbers, chapters 21, 22, 23, and 24. Well, we know that the children of Israel have been wandering for 40 years in the desert because of their lack of faith and their complaining. God had to deal with them sometimes very severely. But we know that after they came from Egypt in this area, they wandered through, and we remember some of the problems that they had. In Mara, there were some bitter waters, and Moses had to throw his staff in. And then in Rephidim and Mount Sinai, there were issues with water and with the leadership of Moses. Moses was up on Mount Sinai for too long, and they demanded that his brother Aaron fashion from the gold bracelets and earrings that they had, melt everything and make an idol that they bowed down and worshiped as God was giving Moses the law. And we know that they complained about the food, and we know that at one point God used fire to teach them a lesson, but they didn't learn. And as we look at our map, we know that once they got around the Edom area, the king of Edom wouldn't let them go through, so they had to go around. But that was because in Kadesh Barnea, when God had given them a glimpse into the promised land, and we see those grapes there, that's significant. Reminds us of the great blessings in the promised land. But they chose to look at the enemy there, the giants, instead, and didn't trust that God would take them into the promised land and give them victory. Even though he'd promised their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, this land, they just didn't have the faith. So they ended up having to wander for 40 years until that generation who had left Egypt would die out. God said that they would not be able to get into the land, and a new generation would. So now they've we remember at Mount Hor, do you remember what happened there? God used serpents to get their attention. And this time I think he got their attention. Remember, the serpents came, they were complaining, they were saying, "Why did you take us out of Egypt?" And God sent serpents, and the serpents were deadly. But when Moses cried out, and they had repented, they went to Moses and said, "We've been wrong, we're sorry." God told Moses to make a serpent out of brass and hang it on a pole, and lift that pole up, and to all who looked to that, they were healed. And it's a picture of Jesus. Those of us that look to the cross are healed of our sin. And that's, the best promise for us is this cross. Promise of holiness, promise of peace, promise of victory over sin. So the boys and girls, they had to go around Edom, and they made their way, but this time, instead of complaining and being frustrated, they were filled with songs of victory and worship. And you can't complain when you're worshiping. So that's something to remember. So they made their way up to the land of Moab and Mount Nebo. And there are Amorites that live there. But they're getting close to the land of Canaan. It's about time to cross that Jordan River into Canaan. The Dead Sea and the Jordan River, which they would have to cross. So here we are. They made their way up towards the land, and the Amorites, they were an idol-worshiping people. They were in the land, and Moses and the children of Israel asked for permission to cross their land, permission to pass through, and they promised that they wouldn't bother the fields and they would stay on the king's highway. But Sihon, the king, refused. refused them permission. And as a matter of fact, he sent his army against them to attack them. But the Israelites were done with complaining. They were done with not trusting God. This time God gave them victory in this battle, and they swept through the land and they took the Amorite cities and villages. And then Og, king of Bashan, he was the next to come against Israel. He was a giant, and his people lived in a rocky mountain fortress. But Israel defeated him and took his land too. Now, Israel's camped on the plains of Moab on the side of the Jordan by Jericho, and they're just outside their promised inheritance. And King Balak, the king of the Moabites, he knew that his country was in deadly peril. He knew God was with these people, and he was afraid. And he stood on a high hill. He looked down on the Israelite encampment in the land of the Amorites, and an evil idea took over his mind. He decided that perhaps his friends, the Midianites, could get some false prophet to put a curse on Israel, to curse Israel, and therefore he would have victory over them. They would be defeated. Balak knew of a man named Balaam who lived in Mesopotamia, and he put curses on people. So he got this idea that he would ask Balaam to put a curse on these people. King Balak sent messengers to Mesopotamia to talk to Balaam, to find Balaam. And he sent with them a large sum of money, lots of money. And go get Balaam, have him come, tell him what I want. I want him to put a curse on some people. Well, Balaam listened to the spew that these people came to give him about the Israelites, but God spoke to Balaam and said, don't you go with them. Don't you put a curse on these people. I have blessed these people. Do not. So Balaam said no. He turned it down. He said, no, I've heard from God. And this made Balak very upset. When his men came back and gave him the report, he got upset. But instead, he didn't give up on this idea. He said, I'm going to send him more money. So he sent his men back to Balaam with lots of money this time, more than ever. Look at that, sacks of it. And you know, boys and girls, the sad thing is this time Balaam said, oh, even though God told me not to do this, that's a lot of money. I might have to go. I may have to take this job. That's a lot of money to turn down. Money can be tempting. It can tempt people to do the wrong thing. No matter what God had said, he decided that he would take that long journey to the land of Moab. So he saddled up his donkey. He got on his donkey and he began the trip. Unknown to him, an angel had been sent from heaven to stop him from going to Israel. Now Balaam couldn't see the angel standing in the way with his sword in his hand, but the donkey did. The donkey saw the angel. Balaam did not. Look at that, boys and girls. So he's driving along, and his donkey stops. We call that balking. The donkey balked. He stopped, and this made Balaam very angry. So you know what he did, which was very sad? He began to hit his donkey and get him back on the road to continue going. And suddenly the donkey shied. It actually moved away towards a wall because it could see that angel, and it knew it couldn't go past that angel. So it actually crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and Balaam got very angry this time. He took, this is going to make, Tesla, cover your eyes. he actually got so angry that he took a stick and began to beat his donkey. He was so angry. He knew that he, wanted that money, and he wanted to curse these people. Didn't matter what God said. And this donkey was just bothering him. Why wouldn't this donkey stay on the road? So he hit the donkey. He began to hit the donkey. Balaam heard a voice nobody had ever heard before suddenly. The donkey began to talk to him. Can you believe that? God had given the donkey a voice to speak so Balaam could understand. If you're not going to listen to God, God might even use a donkey. Why have you hit me these times? 3 times you've hit me. What have I done? In a fit of anger, I would have stopped right there. But in a fit of anger, Balaam answered back, "You have made me look so foolish. I wish I had a sword with me. I would kill you." Balaam was furious because his animal had behaved badly and would not stay on the road and take him where he wanted to go. And there were people watching. "Have I ever done anything like this before in all my life?" The donkey asked him. "No." I think it's beginning to register to him, Balaam admitted, but he was so angry he failed to get the impact of what the donkey was saying. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes. Watch this. Oh my. And look at Balaam on the ground there kneeling or bowing before the angel. And the poor donkey's going, "See, I told you." Look at that. Oh my, that angel. You're not going to get by him. The donkey knew it, and finally now Balaam knows. Oh my. Oh, God got his attention finally, didn't he? Oh my. So his eyes are open now. And he sees the angel standing in the roadway with a drawn sword. And he fell flat on the ground before the angel. "Why did you beat your donkey 3 times?" Now the angel's asking him the same thing the donkey asked. "I've come to warn you because you are headed for destruction. 3 times the donkey saw me and shied away from me. Otherwise, I would certainly have killed you by now." So actually, the angel's saying the donkey saved your life. Then Balaam confessed, "I've sinned because I didn't know that you stood in the road." Well, you sinned because you didn't obey God. God told you, Balaam, "Do not curse these people. I've blessed them. I will turn away. I will turn around. I will go back home." But the angel said, "No, you go on with the men, but say only what I tell you to say." So Balaam continued with the men to the land of Moab. Just as God allowed the people of Israel to have meat in the wilderness when they were determined to have it, so God let Balaam continue to Moab since his heart was set on going. And after the long journey, they finally arrived in Moab. They're finally there after this long trip. King Balak hurries out to greet him. "What took you so long? Are you aware that I can make you a rich man and an important man if you do this thing?" Balaam said to the king, "I am here now, but I can only say the words that God puts in my mouth." Well, at least he's being honest there. So Balak takes Balaam up to the mountain, and they could look down on the camp of Israel. And of course, Israel was very much unaware. They did not know that this was happening. They didn't know that there was a strategy brewing up on top of the mountain. But their God was watching out for them. And although Satan and all his hosts sought to curse Israel, sought to stop God's plan, God wouldn't allow a breath to harm his people. King Balak, waving his arms over the whole camp, told Balaam, "Now curse them! Curse these people!" And there they are on the mountain looking down. You see those fires? Let me tell you a little bit about those. So Balaam instructed King Balak to build 7 altars and offer an ox and a sheep on each altar. That's what those little fire pits were, or those little altars were. So Balak followed his instructions. Balaam went farther up the mountain, came back to the king and princes, opened his mouth to curse the people of Israel. But King Balak was astounded with the words that came out of Balaam's mouth. The prophet whom he had brought to curse and paid a lot of money to curse Israel began to bless them. Oh my, he began to prophesy how great they would become. The king was annoyed at this. Oh my. So he took Balaam to another place where he could see only part of the camp of Israel. And once more he built the 7 altars. He slaughtered the sheep and the oxen. And Balaam spoke to God the second time, "Behold, God has commanded me to bless the Israelites. I can't reverse it." God brought them out of Egypt and gave them great strength. In anger, Balak said, "Balaam, if you don't curse them, don't say anything at all." Then Balak took Balaam to one more spot, hoping that now this time he would curse. He is a very determined king, isn't he? And he thought it would, hoping that Balaam would think that maybe now it would please God if he would curse these people. And again, they built the altars, they made the sacrifices, and at last Balaam finally realized that the Lord truly planned to bless Israel. So he said, "How good are your tents, O Israel?" Well, this doesn't sound like a curse, does it, boys and girls? How good are your tents, O Israel? Who brought you out of Egypt? Who will help defeat all your enemies? God, will greatly bless you. King Balak was furious. "I could have given you anything you wanted, but you have blessed my enemies 3 times. Get away from me now." During all that time, King Balak was plotting against Israel. The Israelites were totally unaware that this was happening, that they were in danger, that there were evil forces massing against them. They were like us, who are so often, we are unaware of the plots Satan has to harm us and to dissuade us and bring us hopelessness. How wonderful to know that God realizes what is going on and that he protects us from the designs Satan has, just as he protected Israel, even to the extent of causing an animal, a donkey, to speak. Boys and girls, what does this story mean to you? Does it bring you hope? God is with us. He's not against us. We're the head and not the tail. We can be above only and not beneath, because we have a good God. Pray to him today. Pray about this story and ask God to strengthen your faith. Love you.